is not good. This is very much not good. Not good news at all, to be honest. And, oh my god, my face is hot just thinking about that scene, girl. No. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mina, and today's video is going to be the finale part to the 3-part video series that I made of me reading the Throne of Glass series. I hope you guys enjoy it. This video is the last, obviously, because it's of Kingdom of Ash. It is spoilery, so if you haven't read it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, do not watch this video. I love this series and I love this video documentation that I have of me reading the series for the first time. If you haven't read this series, definitely give it a chance because I think it is one of the most well done series out there. Genuinely, I grew very attached to these characters and I grew very attached to the story, and I love Sarah J. Maas and her writing, and I'm excited to start Crescent City after this. So without further ado, because I'm sure I am going to ramble on enough in the actual video, let's just get into it. The final video of this 3-part video series. Tired with a T at the end. I have been reading Kingdom of Ash for, I want to say 2 hours now. I am 200 pages in exactly. I stopped at chapter 22. There's a lot going on. Really got into it. We open immediately on some action. I wrote some notes down so I don't forget everything that happens because I have the brain of a mouse and I will forget. Aelin has been missing for months. Rowan has been looking for her. He like keeps trying to send her these thoughts down the mate bond, telling her, I will find you, I will find you. They haven't found her, and he's barely eating, he's barely sleeping. He only stops for the people that he's with to sleep, and he's traveling with Gavriel, Lorcan, and Elide, and they're heading basically towards, they're questioning if they should head towards Doranel or if they should head towards Acadia to find Aelin. Aedion is not talking to Lysandra still after the fight they have in Empire of Storms because she's pretending to be Aelin and she knew this entire time and he feels betrayed by it, so he's not talking to her still. Evangeline is back. She's the cutest thing ever, and when she sees Aedion and they have like a little reunion, she like runs up to him and gives him like this tight hug, and Lysandra shows up, and Lysandra's been playing at being Aelin this whole entire time that Aelin has been missing. She's like talking to the people that are there, and nobody is noticing that she's not there at the same time that Aelin is there. Nobody's questioning why Aedion is not talking to Lysandra, but he pretends to be talking to Aelin, and the entire time he's talking to her as she's pretending to be Aelin, he's like giving her like these dirty, pained looks the entire time. And halfway through, they get attacked by a group of Valg soldiers army, I guess. The way that it happens doesn't make sense because they come through a small like clearing, a small pathway, I guess, that usually they wouldn't have taken. They should have taken the more obvious path, but they take this path where only 2 people can fit at a time, and everyone thinks it's strange. Rowan, Gavriel, Elide, and Lorcan are going through trying to find the lords or the people that were under Maeve's rule and that have been working under Maeve. And this entire time they like take them out, they question them about Maeve's whereabouts, and Rowan gives them the physical pain and Lorcan gives them the mental pain. And we see them basically hunt down this person, this lord, I guess, and Rowan threatens to break his spine and his legs and threatens that Lorcan would do worse for him and that he wouldn't heal with what Lorcan would do to him. So basically, Rowan is hanging on by a thread. Aelin is stuck in this box, this iron box, and they have this iron mask on her that she can barely eat through, and they're lacing her food with iron, so she's not able to bring out any energy or any magic because obviously iron stifles it. And in the beginning, she refuses to eat it and basically almost starves and dehydrates herself to death, but they force food down her throat and they force water down her throat to make her continue to keep going. And this entire time, Maeve has Cairn, I don't know how to say his name, I'm gonna have to look up a pronunciation guide. She has him basically whip her and torture her this entire time. Aelin has this blinking code with Fenris, who obviously is still under the blood oath of Maeve. And like 1 blink is yes, 2 blinks is no, I guess. And 3 blinks is are you okay? 4 blinks is I'm here with you. And the entire time that Aelin is going through all of this, he's been there for her as his wolf form. We see basically like there's a scene where Aelin is like awake and she's not fully recovered, but Karen comes in and he sees her and he's like, oh, it seems that I didn't do enough to you. And he like picks up a hammer and he shatters her knee. Like, what is happening? What is like, that part really made me so fucking upset. Like, genuinely, I was very, very upset. I almost cried because I just felt so bad for her. Because imagine going through all of that, knowing that even if you make it out, there is no out. Because if you make it out, you're going to have to suffer and create this lock and key situation and open the gate and sacrifice your entire being for it. There is no out for her. How does she, like, at this point, like, I don't know. Dorian and Manon have been traveling looking for the Crocans. They can't find any. Dorian and Manon have been getting it on. They're like, you know, all hands and teeth and like rough ass type of intimacy. No one really gets to him because they know that he's Manon's, but neither of them have said anything about it to anybody. But everybody can tell because somehow their like sleeping beds always make it next to each other. And then we get the scene where Dorian sneaks out in the middle of the night pretending to pee, but he's really not. And he summons Gavin, which is Elena's husband, mate, I guess. And he asks him where the 3rd key is. Because if Aelin doesn't sacrifice herself, Dorian can sacrifice himself and create the gate and send them away. And Aelin would be spared. And Gavin tells him, I'm not going to tell you where the 3rd key is because he doesn't want Elena to disappear. Obviously, it's his mate. He begs him, he's like, please, like, let me save my people. And he's like, don't you know that you would disappear too? And you wouldn't have like an afterlife? And he's like, I don't think anybody would care, which really made me really sad. And Gavin tells him that the key is in Morath and that he can go find it in Morath, but he doesn't know exactly where in Morath it is. And he tells him to use Damaris to find it, the sword, that it will lead him to the true place of the key. While this is happening, right before Gavin leaves, Dorian asks him, am I human? And Gavin tells him, I am not the one to answer you. Which, what does that mean? In the beginning, I was like, maybe, like, I don't understand why he would ask if he's human or not, but does he think he's fae? Or does he think he's a witch? Which is it? Like, if you're not human, then what would you be? I'm not understanding. Why would he even ask that question? Before he leaves, he tells Dorian, he's like, don't go until you're ready. Dorian tells him I'm ready, but both of them know that he's not ready. So, you know, he keeps that hidden away from them. Rowan keeps having this recurring dream where Aelin is pregnant and she's about to give birth, but they also have 4 other kids, I believe. And her daughter is like, or their daughter is hanging on to like Aelin and looking up at her, and it's like the family that he's always wanted. And like this strong wind comes by and they disappear. And he wakes up and he's panicked. Lorcan wants to go to Acadia and Elide wants to go to Doranel to go look for Aelin. And in the end, Rowan agrees to go to Acadia and against Elide's wishes. And Lorcan follows after Elide after she leaves. Mind you, this entire time that she's been traveling with these 3 men, these 3 males, I guess, she gets her period and Gabrielle and Rowan give her like pieces of like ripped shirt to use as a pad. And it's Lorcan's. This entire time, Lorcan has been ripping his shirts to give them to Rowan and Gabrielle, to give it to Elide without letting her know that it's his shirt because she can't smell him on them. And he basically is still like really like, he loves her. He wants to save her. He wants to protect her. He follows after her after she leaves, after they agree to go to Acadia. He's like, I'm not doing this just to spite you. And she's like, I saw you crawling after Maeve after she broke the blood oath on the beach. And he's like, I wasn't crawling towards Maeve. I was crawling towards Aelin, trying to save her. And she doesn't believe him, even though Gabrielle tells her that he's telling the truth. Meanwhile, on the Yrene-Kale side of the things, Yrene, because she saved Kale from dying, her life is intertwined with him. If he dies, she dies. Anything that would kill him would kill her too. And that is making him worry even more than usual, because obviously what is Kale gonna do if not worry, because that's his thing. And Yrene is pregnant and no one knows. Not a single person knows. This is not good. This is not good. This is very much not good. Not good news at all, to be honest. Very stressed out about that. Like, how are you pregnant and heading into war? And why are you not telling anyone? The spider that Manon stole the spider silk from in, I believe it was Queen of Shadows or somewhere along those lines, to repair Abraxos's wings, finds them and almost kills them. They almost kill her, but she tells them, hey, wait, pause. I know where the Crokins are, where the last of the Crokins are. And she's a shapeshifter. Dorian is like, she's a shapeshifter. She can probably help me find out how to shapeshift so he can leave and find his way out, because he wants to go to Morath to find the key, but he knows that Manon would never let him go to find the key in Morath, because obviously they've all escaped from Morath. And he's traveling with Manon and the 13th that she is in command of. So they believe the Krokin, or they believe the spider, and they go to where she leads them. And lo and behold, there's a coven, like she said, of Krokins there waiting for her. And guess who shows up? Her great-grandmother. She's like, I'm your great-grandmother from your dad's side. And right as they're about to talk, they end up getting attacked by 2 covens of Yellowlegs, and they all fight together. And everybody's like, you led them here, to Manon. And Manon is like, I promise I didn't lead them here. But, very big but here. Dorian can tell that she's lying, that she did lead them there, and that she had lied. And so they fight them, they kill them, and while Manon is talking to her great-grandmother about, like, the witches and the Krokins and how she came to be and whatever, Dorian sneaks off to go talk to the spider. And the spider is, like, chained or like, strapped to a post or whatever. And while he's talking to the spider, he asks her, how do you shift? Where do you get the power from to shift? And while he's talking to her, he realizes it's a Valk Prince possessed spider, and he kills her without telling Manon about it. And Manon is like, wait, why is he kind of... Aelin gets taken by Cairn to go... I really gotta look up a pronunciation guide before I finish the rest of this book talking about the wrong names. Yeah, she gets taken to Maeve and kneels in front of her because Cairn pushes her into a glass circle, like a circle of shattered glass, and her knees like get scratched up, her feet get scratched up immediately. They put this like mocking crown on her because they're like, oh, this is your rightful crown and you're leaning, or like you're kneeling in front of me. And Fenris's twin, Conal, speaks to Fenris, and he's like, you just always wanted to be better than me. You took the blood oath because you wanted to be better than me. You just didn't want me to have the pleasure of being the blood oath sworn person to Maeve. And Maeve forces Conal to kill himself. He kills himself. Makes Fenris like stand there and try to fight against him, but obviously he can't move because the blood oath keeps him from moving and keeps him from doing anything. Aelin gets visited by her mother while Cairn is talking to her and like mocking her through the little cage that she's in, the box, the iron box. And while she's in the iron box and trying to like dissociate basically, because she does that a lot to like get herself through it, she gets visited by her mother, and her mother is like, why are you crying, Fireheart? And it's so fucking sad. It's so fucking sad. It makes me really sad. Like, this girl is just a girl. She's just a girl. She just turned 20, guys. Like, why is she going through all of this? She does not need to be doing all of this. She should be at the club. And she's like, do not yield. You do not yield. You do not yield. And because of that, she starts like punching the iron box, like punching with all her might over and over and over again, until they basically put her down by like putting smoke poison in the air. And her little punches send I guess a current to Rowan to tell him that she's in Dornell and that she's still very much alive. Because he already knew that though, because the bond is still there. The bond hasn't snapped. And yeah, so she sends it, and now they know that that she's in Dornell. We meet Nox, which, if you read Throne of Glass, you know, Nox is one of the people that fought to be champion with Selena in the first book. And she was actually friends with him. He comes in to give Aedion a message saying that Darrow wants to meet them and that he wants them to come and visit him. And Lysandra talks to Aedion, and he's like, we're gonna go. And she's like, are you sure you want to go? Because what the hell is this? You know, like, the army is tired. And he's like, I don't care. We're gonna go see them. They go meet with Darrow the very next day, or however long later. They go meet with Darrow, and Darrow tells them that he wants them to go back to Orinth. Aedion doesn't want to go to Orinth. He wants to stay on the border because he's like, it's very much more dangerous if we go to Orinth, and it will seem like we're basically running away. And they get outvoted, and everybody decides that they should go to Orinth. And while all this is happening, Lysandra is pretending to be Aelin, and while they're having a meeting, Nox comes in and tells Darrow that he whispers something in his ear, and he's like, okay, let him in. So a messenger comes in, and he's like, Erewhon sends his regards, and blasts Aelin. And just as he's about to say Shifter, because he realizes that Aelin isn't Aelin, it's Lysandra, he gets killed, and apparently Erewhon already knows that she's not Aelin, and that she's a shapeshifter pretending to be Aelin. She goes with Aedion, and they talk about it, and she's like, he's gonna know. He's gonna know. Erewhon is gonna know, and he's gonna think that this is like a slight to him, and he's gonna send more people, and he's gonna fight us. And while she's talking to him, she tells him, she's like, hey, like, I'm sorry, for me it was real. I really did care about you, and whatever was between us was real. I was just doing what she wanted me to do, and I would do it again because she's my queen. And he basically walks away, and Nox comes to Lysandra, and he's like, I know you're not her. I know you're not Aelin, because he knows Aelin. But he's like, you do not recognize me? And she's like, why would I recognize one of Darrow's lackeys? And he tells her, I was a friend of Aelin's, and I know who she is, and now I know that she's Selena as well. What do you want me to do? I want to help you. I want to serve the queen. And she tells him to lace the wine that the rest of the lords drink at dinner, so when they go to sleep and they wake up the next morning, the camp and the army is gone, and they've gone to the border. They're not going to Orinth. Then we find out an army has been sent to fight against Aniel, and that makes Chaol really, really nervous. He's like, I gotta go back home. I gotta warn my father because he needs to fight against them. So they all sail out to go to Aniel. They get to Aniel, and Chaol introduces Yrene to his father, and his father is like, you broke my promise. I do not listen to you. Like, we don't have an army to fight with. And Chaol is like, well, then you should probably retreat and get everybody evacuated. And he's like, last I checked, I was the person who is in charge here. And he's basically a bitch to him this entire time. And Yrene stands up for him and fights for him. And she's like, don't talk to him that way. He's been a great man. He's fought for his land. And like, he's done more than anybody I ever known. So don't talk to him that way. And his father tells him that he likes Yrene better than Selena. Nisreen and Sartak arrive, and they've been like flying overhead to see the army. They're 3 days away, and they're made up of mostly men and Valk princes. Back to Aelin, we get the scene of Maeve putting visions into Aelin's head of her basically being like, oh, aunt, you like, you know, they're like aunt and niece, and they're getting along, and Maeve is telling her a story about this princess who married a king, and she found a way through the world to find a better place. And basically it's Maeve's story. And she keeps asking her, like, where's the key? Where's the key? And while she's asking about the keys, Aelin like snaps out of it. She's like, in the vision, she sees Maeve like choking and strangling Rowan, and that's when she snaps out of it. And she's like, it was just a vision. It was just a vision. It's not real. Meanwhile, Maeve is getting bored, and she's like, I heard these rumors that there's like a Valk prince coming with a bunch of collars on my shores, and I need to go fight them because I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but I can take their collars that they want to put on my people and probably me, and I can take those collars and put it on you, and that way I can get whatever I want out of you. Actually, none of this is true. It's just rumors that Allied, Rowan, Lorcan, and Gavriel have been spreading around the town to lure Maeve out because they know that Aelin is now in Doranel, and they need to get her out so they can get to Aelin. And to do that, they put these rumors out because Rowan knows that Aelin hasn't given in yet, and the temptation of knowing that there's a collar for her would lure Maeve out, and it does. It gets her out. She's like, I'm gonna be disappearing for a couple of days. Karen is gonna take care of you this entire time while I'm gone. While she's gone, Karen gets these instructions by Maeve that he needs to move Aelin somewhere else while she's gone, and that he would take advantage of her and take advantage of the fact that Maeve is gone, and before the collar gets on her, he wants to basically do all the damage that he possibly can. Meanwhile, Rowan, Allied, Lorcan, and Gavriel, I always forget his name, they decide that Allied should go in to the town to find Karen because obviously he jilted her before. So she's like, nobody is going to question why a girl is looking for Karen because he jilted me and nobody's gonna question why, I'm looking for him if I tell them that. And Lorcan is like, don't go in, we'll find another way, don't do it. And she's like, you do not command me. Rowan commands me. And Rowan agrees with her idea, and they tell her that they'll teach her the ways. She's gonna go into the town, ask for Karen, and this time she's gonna find out if Maeve has actually left, because now there's an army surrounding Dornell. They don't know if it's to keep Aelin in or if it's because Maeve had left. So Elide's job after she gets in is to ask for Karen, and in this entire situation, she's gonna find out if Maeve is still there or if she'd left, and she'd left Aelin alone. So far, that's all that's going on. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's actually going really, really fast. Reading it has been really fun. I don't know if I'll read again tonight because I've been reading a lot, like I said, and I don't want to overdo it and overdo myself and burn myself out on reading. Just that tandem read took everything out of me. So I think I'm done for the day. Maybe I'll read again tomorrow. Maybe I'll read before bed. It's going by a lot quicker than I thought because I read like 200 pages, and when I put my bookmark in, this is how much I read. And I was like, 200 pages is this much? That's crazy. I am now 402 pages in. I am, I believe, 41% in, if I'm correct. This book has torn my heart out of my chest so early in the morning. Like, I'm already very, very sad, and I teared up reading today. Elide goes into the city and talks to this group that has 2 women and the rest are men, and one of the women asking her what she wants, and Elida's pretending to be like this meek little girl who can't speak, and like, she's stuttering and whatever because that's what she's good at. And she asks them if they've heard of Karen, and they tell her that Maeve is not in the city, that they don't know where Karen is. She dips, and as she's dipping, she gets followed by one of the girls that was in the group. And one of the girls in the group tells her that she was friends with Rowan and that she used to be lovers with Lorcan, and that Karen was in the city up until the day before, and that he'd left, and that he's now in the Eastern camp, and that's where they would find him. And she tells her to trust her because she doesn't like Queen Maeve at all herself. Manon agrees to fly with the Crokins to go fight against the Morath army. And while she's getting that done and she's getting ready to go, one of the witches tells her that her wyvern, whatever, and Astrins are mates, and that's why they've been together this entire time. Dorian continues trying to shift and trying to change his appearance, and Manon sits there and watches him, trying to tell him when he shifts or when something changes, and she's like, why do you want to change so bad? And he's like, I just want to change. She keeps saying that she doesn't care about anything and doesn't care about anyone, and he's like, caring is not bad, caring is a good thing, you should be caring about these things. And she's like, why would you say that? And he's like, I care about my people, I care about my friends, I care about you even. And she gets mad and she leaves, and then when she comes back to talk to him, his eyes had changed color to brown. No longer they're blue. So he managed to shift something in him. Adion's army, which is with Lysandra and Morta and Ren and all of the other people, they fight against an army of 50,000 people, and they're only 25,000. So they almost die, but somehow they make it out. Cairn, because he's a twisted bastard, he is torturing Aelin this entire time, and he's about to set her whole entire body on fire to see how she likes it. And as he's about to do that, she's because now they're in the Eastern camp with Cairn and Fenris and Aelin. And so she's laying there strapped to a table, and she starts talking to him, mocking him, trying to get him to kill her. So she doesn't tell him anything because she doesn't want to break, but the pain is becoming so much and she's so fearful of the fire. And he starts doing all this shit. He brings her closer to the fire, and he puts her face, which is covered with an iron mask, against the fire, and heats up the mask and heats up her little restraints on her wrists. And while she's fighting with him, he shoves her against one of his chest of drawers or whatever, and she falls and makes a broken sound. And Fenris loses it because he's never heard her sound like this ever, broken before like this. He continues to fight and fight and fight against the blood oath, knowing that it would kill him if he breaks the blood oath, but he breaks the blood oath and he fights against Karen, giving her enough time to get out of the tent. Just as she's about to leave, the reason why Fenris loses his shit is because Karen takes a hot poker iron and like slams it against Aylin's spine, and she like falls and almost dies. And that's when Fenris loses it and starts fighting against Karen, breaking the blood oath. Now both of them know that he doesn't have long to live because he broke a blood oath. Meanwhile, while she's running away from the tent, she's running like can't see what's going on. She finds where Gavriel and Lorcan are at, and she like runs towards them, and she's like running in zigzags trying to get away so she doesn't get shot and doesn't get killed. And while she's doing that, Rowan is fighting against the front of the camp. And while he's fighting and he's flying overhead, he like sees her, and then he comes down and they take her to where Elide is. She's like, Fenris is still in there, Fenris is still in there. So Rowan and Gavriel end up going back inside to go to the tent to get Fenris. Lorcan takes her back to where Elide is, and she like panics. She has like this panic attack. She's like, take it off, take it off, take it off, take it off. And like she's fighting against the mask and the restraints on her wrists, and she's panicking the entire time, and they can't break it. They can't break the thing. And while she's panicking this entire time, trying to get out of it, Gavriel and Rowan make it back to the tent. They see that Fenris is still there, and he's barely alive at this point, and that Karen is like, has like a chunk of him bitten out because of Fenris, and he's almost dead. So this is how I knew Rowan is a man. He is that man. He is that guy. TM. He tells Gavriel to heal Karen, and then he skins him and beheads him. Because he whipped Aylin, and he remembers Aylin saying that if she were ever to be whipped again, she would skin that person alive. So that's what he does. He heals him, and when he wakes up, he skins him alive, and then he beheads him to make sure that he's dead. And then they take Fenris, and they get out, and they get back to where Aylin and Lorcan and Elide are waiting for them. Somehow, using like word marks, Aylin like guides Rowan's fingers to do the word marks on her, and she gets the restraints off. Fenris is about to die, and she sees him that he's about to die, so she goes to him and makes him take the blood oath so she can save him, and somehow he's saved and he's alive. Thank God. And they're all alive, and they get like guided by these little folk, which there's like a thing from Studio Ghibli that kind of reminds me, or like is what I think the little folk look like. I don't know if it's true, but that's what I imagine. They guide her to this cave with the rest of them, and they tell her that she's safe and that she can rest now. She should be okay. Dorian does a summoning, and guess who shows up? Because Sarah J. Maas will not leave a leaf unturned. No, ma'am. No. He's summoning, and he's surprised when Kaltain shows up. You heard that right. Because I was shook too. I saw Kaltain and I said, I must be out of my mind. This cannot be true. But it is. She shows up and she talks to him. And she's like, I know, like, you didn't think you could fight, like, summon me, because apparently he didn't think there was much of her left to summon at this point because of the way she died. But she tells him that the key is indeed in Morath, and that if he were to go get it, he can go get it. But he is not to fight with Erewhon, because if he fights with Erewhon, he's going to end up with a collar around his neck again. And she warns him of that. She's like, don't do that. Just go, get the key, get out as fast as you possibly can. After he talks to Kaltain and the summoning is done, he ends up being able to shift, because he's like, I can't shift. I don't even know how to begin to shift. And she's like, but do you though? And he takes her words to heart, I guess. And he ends up shifting into a raven. And as he does that, Manon shows up. And she sees him shift, and she's like, when were you going to tell me that you were going to go to Morath to get the key? I thought we stopped looking for the key. And he's like, you stopped looking for the key. I personally never stopped looking for the key. I want to go get the key, and I want to do what I need to do. You can't stop me. And she's like, fine, you can go get the key, but first, you have to come with us as your last mission to see if you're really ready or not. I need you to be a spy, to play Valk Prince, to go with me to the Ferrying Gap and see what's going on down there. After we do that, you can go do whatever the hell you want. And he's like, fine. And then they have an argument, and they end up sleeping in separate tents. He doesn't let her sleep in the same tent as him. Then Aylin like wakes up in the middle of the night, and she looks over at where Rowan is sleeping, and she's like, is this true? Is he really my mate? Because obviously Maeve had fucked with her brain so badly that she couldn't even tell what was real from what was not, because she kept showing her visions of her and Rowan being together and knowing that they're mates or not knowing that they're mates. But when she wakes up, the little folk are like, you know, you're safe. It's true what he told you. He is your mate. And she goes to him and she wakes him up and he's like, can I touch you? And she's like, no, I need to like wash myself off. So they go down to this lake. And she ends up like warming herself so like, cause her fire wants to get out so badly, but she keeps it at bay. And she gets into this lake and she showers and she tells him that there's basically no marks on her skin whatsoever. Like the whip marks on her back are gone from Endovir. Her mating bond is gone, or mating mark is gone. Her blood oath mark is gone. Her Karanam mark is gone, because they kept like hurting her so badly and like giving her new skin over and over and over again. So now there's not a single callus thing, anything on her skin, and she hates it. The low folk help guide them into a boat, and while they're on the boat, Aelin like is like, stop the boat, and they go into this cave where they find a bunch of like jewels and like treasure basically, and they take it out because she's like, we need money basically to make our way back to Terrasen. We can't just keep staying here, and we need money to get out, so we have to take it. While they're in the cave, they find these rings, and Aelin tells Rowan, she's like, I don't know if you know much about like how humans marry, but when we marry, or like when humans marry, they give each other rings. So she gives him a ring, he gives her a ring, they exchange rings, and she's slowly trying to get back to herself. Like she's making jokes at this point and trying to be funny and trying to be sarcastic and witty, but you know deep down inside, like there's so much that she's struggling with, but she's trying so hard to like get back to the old times, which is not possible. You've already been through so much. It's not possible to just go back to the old days, but that's what she keeps trying to do. And while they're doing that, Elide and Lorcan end up fighting and arguing because before she goes into the town to talk to the group of Fae, she finds that his shirt was already in strips at the bottom of his pack, ready for when her next cycle begins. Which, say what you will about Lorcan, I love that dude, but then he fucks it up by opening his mouth, which every man ever. He opens his mouth and he's like, when will you forgive me? Well, like, what more can I do to atone? How much longer am I gonna atone for? And she's like, I never asked you to atone for anything. I told you. I meant what I said on the beach. I don't want you. I will never want you. I hope you die alone. You brought Maeve here. And he's like, I brought Maeve there to save you because your queen was ready to save you. I regret it. I obviously do. I came with you guys to save Aelin because I meant it, because I care about you and I don't want you to die. And she's like, but I don't care about me. And he's like, but I care about you and I care about what happens to you. So yeah, they end up just arguing about that, and it doesn't end anywhere, really. Aelin and Rowan speak about their mating bond and how guilty she feels that Lyria was brought into all of this and she was hurt and she couldn't do anything about it, and how like Maeve had lied to Rowan all these years, and she's like, I feel like it's my fault. And Rowan is like, obviously I wish none of that had happened, but I don't blame you. I am more than happy that you're my mate. I always wished that you were my mate, even when I first met you and I didn't know anything about you. I wished it was you instead of her. That doesn't mean like it was your fault, because it wasn't. He tells her that even when she decides eventually that she has to go build the key and the gate and the lock and whatever and banish the gods and banish with them, that and like sacrifices herself, that he would sacrifice himself with her because he doesn't want to be queen of Terrasen without her, and that they would do anything together forever. Aelin talks to Lorcan and she's like, I can't trust you because obviously you worked for Maeve this entire time. The only way that I would trust you, the only way that I would give you a place in Terrasen to be, and she basically hints at him, it's like, if you want to come to Terrasen with us and keep in touch with Elide, then this is what you have to do, is take the blood oath for me. And he's like, why would I do that? What's in it for me? And she's like, what's in it for you is that you get to come to Terrasen, basically have a place in Terrasen. Wherever you reside, it doesn't matter to me, but you get to stay in Terrasen. If you don't, then you're banished from Terrasen and you will never step foot in there, meaning he would never see Elide again. And guess what? He takes the blood oath for Aelin. And she's like, your only order is to protect Terrasen and protect its people. Chaol and his father end up getting ready to fight against the Morath army that's coming towards their way. And while they're getting ready to fight, Chaol's dad tells him that his mom and his brother had ran away in the middle of the night. They fled. He doesn't know where they went. He doesn't know anything about them. And Chaol is like, if you can't lead these people, then I will. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I gotta do what I gotta do. And his dad is like, your wife is pregnant. You may be dumb, but I'm not. I can see that she keeps her hand on her stomach and that she turns green when it's mealtime. Like, you should know better. Your wife is pregnant. And Chaol is like shooketh about it because obviously he had no idea. And Irina like keeps pushing herself to try to help them, even though she's not seeing Chaol as often these days. Like, she sees him in like passing. Terrasen's army with Aedion in charge Aedion is a bitch to Lysandra, and he like bitches at her, and he tells her that he calls her a useless shapeshifter, which like why? Every time that man opens his mouth towards Lysandra, it's some shit that I don't want to hear. And he continues to do it. And he tells her, like, he fights with her. He's like, this is all your fault. You did this. You and Aelin fucked everything up. This is your fault. This is your fault that we're dying, that we don't have Aelin, that people are questioning why Aelin isn't using her fire in this war, and this is all your fault. And he calls her a useless shapeshifter, and he kicks her out in the snow while she's naked wearing nothing but a cape or like a thing to cover her, and he kicks her out in the snow. And the next day, they end up fighting against Morath's army, and Lysandra realizes that she's the last one left at the front fighting against the army, even though there's no one behind her, and she's shifted as Aelin, so it looks like Aelin is by herself fighting up there, but Aedion knows that it's her and that she's fighting by herself, and suddenly he gets the regret. He's like, no, I don't mean it. I didn't mean any of what I said. I take it back. I love her. Like, I don't want her to get hurt. I didn't mean that she's useless. And mind you, it's too fucking late because now she's fighting and she's getting hurt. She gets scratched or like clawed by a poisoned claw on one of the things that are flying by. And then as he's sprinting over to her to try to help her, they see that there are witches flying on top of them, overhead of them. And he like jumps on top of her to cover her body with his. That's where I stopped, because to be honest, I got pissed off at Aedion. I don't know what's gonna happen with Maeve. I don't know where she is. I don't know what's gonna happen when she finds that Kieran is dead and that Aelin had escaped. But oh my god, the scene where he's about to set her like on fire with like stuff under her, and like he pushes her head with the mask on and like the fire, I literally was like tearing up the entire time because she just doesn't want to yield. And when she goes to Rowan, when Rowan finds her, she tells him, she's like, I didn't break. I didn't tell them anything. And I'm like, she's just a girl. I'm really sad that this is the last book. I don't know how it's going to end, but I already miss everybody in it. And I love everybody in this book series so much. And I love the characters. And I'm going to be really, really sad when I finish it. Once I finish this book and then I go to pick up something new and I'm not in this world anymore, I'm gonna be devastated. I am 602 pages in. This is how much I have left. This is how much I've read. I am going through it. Let's talk about it. Aelin shows up at Chaos Camp. Her, Rowan, Lorcan, Alide, Gabrielle, and Fenris, they all show up at Kale's camp, and when they show up, she sees that Kale is up and moving and walking, which, mind you, the last time she saw him, he was confined to a chair. So the minute that she sees him, she starts crying, bawling her eyes out, because this is her, like, one of her best friends, really. She sees him and he's walking, and she, like, immediately starts crying. Kale introduces Yrene to her as his wife, and she, like, hugs him, and she introduces her husband, which is Rowan. And it's so insane to think about how far they've come from the beginning of the series to now, and that Aelin is married and Kale is married, and like he has a baby on the way, which is crazy. Kale tells Yrene that he knows that she's pregnant, and he's like, I'm gonna make the best life for them. This war better end quickly so I can make them a nursery and make them a place to be at, which is so cute. After they all introduce each other to each other, they are there basically to fight with Kale's army and the Kagan army to help against the Morath army. And then after that's done, Aelin wants the Kagan's army to help fight for Terrasen as well. So Hasar tells her, like, impress me and we'll talk about it. And if you impress me enough during this war, then we'll fight with Terrasen. She walks away, and after they walk away, they're like by this lake, her and Rowan, and she basically has a meltdown. She's like, I don't want this. I don't want to do this. Like, I just want this to be over. I'm struggling a lot. And obviously, it's very clear that she's struggling a lot, because you can tell throughout the entire time, I think I said this in the earlier clips, that she's trying her best to be the old version of herself, but that version is no longer there. That version was killed by Maeve. She had to become this different person to be able to survive what happened to her under Karen and Maeve. She's sitting there basically telling Rowan that she's tired, that she has basically very little fight left in her, and she doesn't want to continue fighting. She's just so tired. Kale and Nasreen tell her that Maeve is a Valg queen. Rowan and Gabrielle are like, oh my god, we were blood sworn to a Valg queen, which is crazy. So they're everybody's shook. Gabrielle goes to Rowan and he's like, why is she not asking me to take the blood oath? I'm more than happy to take the blood oath for her. Why won't she let me take it? And he's like, well, she wants Adion to take it first. And once Adion takes it, he can decide if you're able to take the blood oath or not, because obviously she values Adion a lot more than Gabrielle, because Adion is her cousin, and she doesn't want Adion to be upset at her for giving the blood oath to so many people already, and then to his father as well, when he doesn't even get along with him. Once everybody finds out that Maeve is a Valg infested queen, basically, Elide and Lorcan have this argument where he tells her, like, I didn't know that she was Valg. And she's like, it doesn't make a difference if you knew or didn't know. It doesn't affect me. And they have like this entire argument about him basically fighting for Maeve, and he didn't know what she was, and he like did all these horrible things in her name. And she tells him, like, I meant what I said at the beach. I don't care about you. I don't care if you make it off this battlefield, which really comes back to bite her in the ass, because she literally goes, oh, I don't care if you make it off the battlefield or not. And she walks away. Adion and Lysandra argue again, and she ends up, after she gets injured, she ends up being healed by the healers. And while she's being healed by the healers, she changes from Aelin to herself again, and the people that are there see her change from Aelin to her, and it gets Adion in real deep shit, basically. He tells her, like, I'm sorry, when I saw you on that battlefield, I didn't know what to do. Like, I have been an ass towards you, and I'm really, really sorry about it. I didn't mean anything I said. And she's like, I don't care. You threw me out in the snow. I've never been so humiliated in my life, and I don't care about you. Don't talk to me. We have nothing to say to each other. Because people found out that she wasn't Aelin, they basically blame it on him, and they're like, oh, you were her cousin? Like, you let this happen. Where is Aelin? And they strip him of the general title, so he's no longer a general, and they take the sword of Orinth from him as well, which really makes him like fall into a depression. He's like, I don't care about anything, I don't care about anybody, and he goes and disappears into his rooms for like a long while. Aelin meets Kale's dad, and then she talks to everybody, and she's like, well, what happens to Doranel and everywhere else if Maeve is dead? And everybody's like, well, I guess you would become queen, because you're technically related to her, so you would become the fairy queen of the West. And she's not sure how she feels about that, or how long she'll have with that title, because obviously she's gonna die eventually, whether she makes a lock or not. Dorian changes into one of the Croaken witches. He can shift now, so he shifts into one of the girls, and you have this scene where he gets adjusted to like having boobs or whatever, and he's like, oh, I have to adjust my posture for their weight, and his like arm brushes against them every time he moves, and it's really funny. And Manon immediately knows when she walks by him. She's like, oh, you know, why, you know, change back. They end up having this conversation about him going to Morath. He's like, tell me a reason why I should stay. And she's like, oh, I can't. Well, basically it's like a Chuck Bass, Blair Waldorf situation. She's like, just stay. And he's like, I don't know why you're so afraid to care about things. You should care about these things. You should care. You should have something to care about. And she's like, I don't care. How dare you say that I care about anything or anyone ever? And as they're about to leave to go fight against the Morath army, they get found by the matrons of the witches. Manon's grandma is one of them. So they come down. They have the Croaken crown on one of the Yellow Legs matrons, and she kills the Yellow Legs matron, and she lets the Blue Blood matron go away. And then when she comes to kill her grandma, she doesn't kill her grandma, and she allows her to flee, even though her grandma basically, the whole time that they're fighting, she's like, you're pathetic. You're just like your mother and father. They were both pathetic as well. And she just lets her go at the end, because she is very, very close to ending her life. Once the grandmother leaves, she leaves the crown, the Croaken crown, with them. And Manon goes to give it to her great-grandmother, and her great-grandmother is like, this doesn't belong to me. This belongs to you. And she puts it on top of her head, and she's crowned as the Queen of the Witches, as one, not like different entities, not like, you know, Yellow Legs, Blue Bloods, Black Beaks. They're all as one. Then you have Rowan worrying about his wife this entire time. He watches her sleep, and everybody's wondering, like, why isn't she using her magic to burn all of these enemies? And she has not used her magic at all since she come back, if I'm not mistaken. And Fenris sees him, and he's like, I know you're worried about her. The only reason she's not using it is because they burned her while she was captive, and they burned her so badly once that it took her 2 weeks for the healers to help heal her back up into like acceptable condition, and that she basically refuses to use it now. She's just been like going deep down into the well of magic, but not using it, telling it not yet. But she refuses to use it because of what happened to her when she was held captive. Kale's army and her army start fighting against the Morath army, and while they're fighting against the Morath army, it takes her a while to show up, and everybody's like, where is she? Why isn't she showing up? And even Rowan is like, what is taking her so long? Why is she not showing up? And eventually she does end up showing up, and she shows up wearing this gold armor suit, I guess, and this crown as well, and she helps them fight, and they win. And though they won, they have to run. Mind you, while they're fighting, Lorcan gets this great idea to let his shield down, because he's like, well, nobody's gonna care if I make it back. Because obviously Elide had told him earlier that she doesn't care if he makes it out of the battlefield alive or not. So he was like, well, no one would care if I die. So he lets his shield down and fights with no shield and gets impaled in the stomach with a sword and basically passes out. And as this is happening, they win, but Nasreen and Sartak come and tell them like, hey, we just saw like a fleet of an army try to break the dam, and though we got rid of them, they made considerable damage, and the dam is about to break, and the city must evacuate because there is no one to help stop it. There's no way to stop it, and everybody's gonna flood, and everybody's going to die. When Aelin comes back to tell everybody like, we're evacuating, we got to go, we got to get moving because we're about to get, drowned alive. Elide sees them, and Elide is like, where's Lorcan? And they're like, and she's like, where's Lorcan? And she's like, her voice gets gradually higher and more panicked as she asks, where is he? And they're like, well, the last time we saw him, he was at the other end of the battlefield, but we can't get to him because the dam is going to break and we're all going to die. We need to evacuate. And she doesn't evacuate. Instead, she takes Kale's horse, Farrasha, which literally means butterfly. She takes that horse, gets on it, and like runs through the entire battlefield looking for him, trying to find him so she can save him. She does eventually end up finding him, but when she finds him, his like stomach is basically ripped and he's basically on his last breath. And she's like, get up, you have to get up. And she like tries to help him up, and as he's getting up, she like tries to force him on the horse, and she's like, I came back for you. I promised you I would find you. Somehow she gets him on the horse. Meanwhile, when they get on the horse, the dam breaks. And as the dam breaks, they're like sprinting on Farrasha to get to inside the gates. But the gates are about to be closed. She's a mile away from this, mind you. And she's sprinting, trying to get there. And halfway through, fucking Lorcan tells her, let me go. I love you. I've loved you for a long time now, but you need to let me go because the horse cannot handle both of our weights. And she's like, and he literally lets go of her, but she holds him in place and she's like, absolutely not. I am not letting you go. This is not happening. And they're literally like they're so close to the gate when they hear the dam break, and Rowan looks at it, looks to his side, and guess what? His wife isn't there. Aelin is not there. Instead, she's run into the area where Lorcan and Elide are, and she taps into her magic, which she's been saving for a very, very long time. She's been saving it for 3 months, like building this power inside of her, deep inside of her well, to use it on Maeve when she finds Maeve again, so she can like basically incinerate her from existence. But she uses it against the wall of water that comes towards them from the dam. And she saves everybody basically. But while saving everybody, she burns out and she passes out. Manon and Dorian, after they've talked with the Croaken witches and she's been, crowned and whatever, he tells her that he's leaving for Morath the next day, and she tells him not to go. And she's like, please, I can't go with you. Like, don't go. You're right. I do care. I care about you. Don't go. And he tells her like, that's not enough. I have to go find the key. I have to do this. It's not fair for Aelin. And she tells him like, I'll marry you and we'll build an alliance, and there will be an alliance between all the witches and whoever wants to be with me and Adderlin, and we can save Terraston together. I will make that sacrifice. And he hears her say the word sacrifice, and he's like, I don't know. Honestly, if somebody had told me, like, I'll marry you as a sacrifice, I don't want it at this point. And though he doesn't show that he's upset by it, they end up, like, kissing and sleeping together. And this time, for some reason, feels a little different than their usual scenes like that. And it feels like the end of something, which really made me sad. I actually really teared up. Because Manon has come a long way to tell him that she loves him. When she wakes the next morning, Dorian is gone, and so are the 2 word keys. Before she can even think to go with him or to go after him, the Croaken witches come and tell her that Terrasen has called for help as like a challenge or a test to see if she's worthy of being the queen of the witches, and she agrees to go save them, and she lights the hearths. So there's, I believe, how many hearths are there? I believe there's maybe 7 or 5 hearths that she has to light, and once she lights them, we find this out earlier in the book that if she lights them, then it's like a call for war and for the witches to help, and they all light their respective hearths and they leave to go help Terrasen. Rolf, the pirate king, comes to save Aedion's army with fire lances at literally the last ending of, like, they're all tired, they're all like worn out from the war, so he comes and saves them. Meanwhile, Yrene heals Lorcan and he wakes, and the first time he wakes, Fenris is there, and then he like falls back asleep again, and when he wakes up, Elide is sitting there like asleep, and he reaches out and he touches her, and she wakes up and she's like, how are you feeling? And they talk, and she's like, oh, I came back for you. And he's like, yeah, I remember you telling me. And she's like, well, I remember you saying some things too. Did you mean them? And he's like, yes, I mean them. And she tells him that she loves him as well. And they kiss multiple times. And I love them together so much because both, like, I know. Respectfully, he's a shitty man. He's made some mistakes, but I love them together so much because I feel like he brings out the strength in her. They like tell each other that they love each other, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna like find joy in teaching her all about pleasure and stuff. And oh my god, my face is hot just thinking about that scene, girl. She leaves to help Yrene because apparently Yrene is helping heal the Valg out of people, or treat the Valg out of people, because obviously we find out with Kale and Tower of Dawn that the Valg darkness inside of people when they get possessed are like an infection. So she's treating like 10 to 15 people a day. Although it's not enough, she's at least still doing something. And Aelin asks Kale to let her see it, and she does see it, and she does not believe what she sees in front of her eyes because obviously Yrene is so incredibly powerful. Speaking of Kale, we get told that when Kale left Aniel to go help with Dorian and become, the captain of the guard there, he's been writing for his mother, or to his mother, and apparently none of his messages, none of his letters have gotten to his mother because his dad has kept them, and he shows them because he tries to use it as like a bargaining chip for like a piece of land that belongs to Adarlan, and he's like, you can keep the letters. Mom has already left you. I don't care. You're a bastard. And we also find out that Cashin comes, which is the heir of the Kagan, as we know, and he decides that he does indeed want to help. They want to help with Terrasen's war, and that they would help them and back them up, basically. And the last thing that I read about, which really just made me stop in my tracks, is that Dorian arrives in Morath, and he's on a wyvern, whatever, and he sees Erewhon speaking to Maeve, and she's like, so you knew I was coming? And he's like, well, there wouldn't be a reason for you to be here if not for this, which I don't know what this is, if it's the collars, if it's something else. Like I said, I'm like 60% in. Today is the 23rd. So I'll either finish it the 24th or the 25th. Let's just pray for a happy ending for all of my children, because if something happens, I really don't know why I'm hoping for a happy ending. Because, like, realistically, we do know Aelin has to die. She has to sacrifice herself to make the key, the gate, the lock, and like banish all the gods and whatnot. But then what? Like, because she tries to talk to Yrene and be like, do you think you could heal like the Valg out of Maeve and Erewhon? And I don't like, because her and Rowan have a conversation about this, and she's like, if I was pregnant, would you like let me do that? And he's like, absolutely. I wouldn't personally want you to be close to Erewhon or Maeve if you were pregnant, which obviously if I were Kill, I wouldn't want my wife to be anywhere near them either. I don't know how there could be a happy ending if Aelin is going to sacrifice herself regardless in the end. I'm back because I've decided that I would like to read some more today. I'm on chapter 70, 602 pages in, so I have like 400 pages left, if that. I'm thinking if I read like, say about maybe 100, 200 pages tonight, I'll be able to finish this tomorrow. The only thing that is really making me question if I want to do that or not is, do I really want to finish this earlier than I've prepared myself for? Because, you know, okay, look, so I've had this idea in mind that I would read like 200 pages, 200 pages, 200 pages every day for 5 days, because it's technically 1,000 pages. So if I read 200 pages for 5 days straight every day, then I would be done in 5 days, which means technically, according to my calculations, I would be done 2 more days. I would finish on Monday. But if I read 200 pages now, today, I've already read my 200 pages for the day. If I read 200 more pages today, then that would make me at 800 pages, and that would mean I would finish it tomorrow, Sunday, instead of Monday, which I'm not really mentally prepped for. I'm really enjoying the story, and it's become like a part of my day. I've been reading this series for a month now. I started on the 28th of November. It's the 22nd, the 23rd today? It's the 23rd today of December. So technically, I've been reading this every day for a month, and that is a lot. Like, just thinking of that makes me really emotional, actually, because I'm really, really, like, I have grown so attached to these characters, specifically Aelin. Like, I'm really sad. I think I'm gonna read 200 more pages today, and then hope for the best as I finish this earlier than I thought. This just really reminds me of when I was like 16, 17, and I was reading them when they first were coming out, and the Kingdom of Ash wasn't out yet. And it makes me nostalgic, and I'm really attached to these characters, but at some point I'm gonna have to finish it because I want to finish it before the year is over. Mind you, when I started this year, I really was not in the mindset of reading the series at all. This was just like a oh, I wonder if I would like it if I read it now type of situation. I forgot. Oh my god. Dorian doesn't know that Aelin is free. He doesn't know that she's no longer with the queen. He doesn't know that she's no longer with Maeve. So now when he sees Maeve with Erewhon, he thinks she's there to sell Aelin to him. Oh. Maeve's army refused to march. Her nobles, she says, my nobles, my servants, refused to kneel. I am Queen of Doranel no longer. That means after Aelin got away, she's been, like, there was a coup against her, I guess. Oh shit, she knows. So Maeve is there basically to tell Erewhon that she's gonna like help him and that she can open portals, and so if they work together they can find a host that's much stronger and much more like powerful and immortal to host the Valk princesses that he'd planted and failed in Duva because Kel got it out, or Kel and Yrene got it out. So yeah, he's like, we'll be grateful to serve you. And then she walks by and she knows that Dorian is Dorian but shifted. So the spider that he killed earlier, I think in this book or the book before, and he'd asked her about how to shift, was a spy for Maeve, and that's how she knew where he was, and she sent the matrons after them when Manon ended up fighting them. Oh, I hate it. 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 Dorian is so willing to sacrifice himself. He's like, I know that she's, because Maeve is like, she was hoping that Maeve tells him that Aelin was hoping that she would be too late and that Dorian would be the one to sacrifice himself. And he literally tells her, he's like, she has a mate in a kingdom. I don't blame her. Oh, somebody give this man a mate. That's literally the least he deserves. No. No, 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 no. No. Tell me why Dorian just offered to marry Maeve to do an alliance. I'm not allowing them. I feel sick. I feel sick. I really do. Oh, I feel sick. Oh, please don't let this marriage go through. Please. Please, Sarah J. Maas, I cannot do this. This is the final book. There's no coming back from this if they do get married. There are no further books to break up this marriage. This cannot happen. I'm putting my faith in Sarah J. Maas because she wrote ACOTAR, and simply only because of that. I will not have this marriage. This will not happen. Oh, that's painful. Oh. Dorian shifts to look like Vernon because he sees Vernon talking to Erewhon, and when Vernon leaves, Dorian shifts into him, and then he goes back into the room to talk to Erewhon, and he's like, why are you like doing this war? And he's like, well, I want to be with my brothers. I love my brothers dearly, and they're gonna stop me from going to my brothers, which they meaning Aelin and Dorian. And then he speaks about Dorian's dad, and he's like, he never fully yielded, not completely. He was never like a fully great servant. He wasn't like a fully obedient servant. And somebody bring some fucking happiness for this man. Dorian gets slap after slap after slap, and this man just like it's Waterloo, isn't it? I don't know why I'm doing that. Okay. Cale just told Gabrielle that he wishes he was his dad. Because Gabrielle cares so much about Aedion, he's like, he congratulates Yrene and Cale on them being pregnant, and he goes, I'm not telling you for pity, I'm telling you to like tell you to like cherish every moment. And Cale is like, you're a better father and Aedion will forgive you. On the other hand, the Farian Gap is empty. There's no one there, which is strange. Why is he trusting Maeve? Why is Dorian trusting Maeve? I don't care if you have enemies in common. That's not enough to trust the woman. So Dorian finds a chamber with all of these like word stone collars, and he basically has a meltdown, and he has to be dragged out by Maeve. And she's like, what you felt in there, that is why I left their world. Every day that was what I felt. I still don't trust her, but my man's having a panic attack in there. They told him to stay away. Why don't these people ever listen? Ew. Ew, 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 ew. Ew. Oh my god. Ew. So after Maeve gets Dorian out of the chamber with all the collars, she tells him that she'll shift, or like she'll seduce Erewhon to distract him while he goes and looks for the key. And then when she gets there, he's still there, but he's like hiding and shifted into something small. And she shifts into Aelin, And then when he doesn't like that, she shifts into Manon, and she's like, is this who you want? Is this who you intended to be your queen? To Erewhon. And Erewhon is like, no. So she changes into herself, and he's like, regardless of what you do, I will not be with you that way because you're my brother's wife. Should you need release, I'll send someone to your chambers. But he's not sleeping with her himself. Disturbing, really. Like, genuinely concerning, actually. What? I just have a feeling that Maeve is going to betray him. I just have a feeling that Maeve and Erewhon are working together, and that Erewhon knows that she's working with Dorian, and that they're gonna capture him and put that freaking collar on him. Please let me be wrong. Please. What did I tell you guys? What did I tell you guys? What did I tell you guys? I knew it. I knew it. So he gets there, he goes through the portal. The portal takes him to Erewhon's bedroom. In his bedroom, there's a girl laying there, and she looks like a twin of Kaltain, and she has the same like little wound that she has in her arm. And he sits there and he takes her arm and he does a little bit of magic, and he gets the shard, which is the key, which is the last key. And then as he's about to leave, the girl is like, kill me, please, kill me, please, kill me, please. And he hesitates. And then in that moment of hesitation, she dies. He turns around. He sees that Maeve is there. Maeve had killed the girl. And then she tells him to give her the key. And then before he can even reach for Damaris, his sword, he gets ensnared in Maeve's web. I told y'all she was gonna let me down. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I gotta go. I can't talk about this. I read some more. I am officially 822 pages in, which means I am, according to Goodreads, 80% in. 83%. I have 100 pages left. No, that's not true. I have 150 pages left. And then I'm done with the entire Throne of Glass series. I'm very scared because the shit that has happened between pages 600 and 800, crazy. Absolutely crazy. Let's discuss. When I believe the last time I was talking, I said that I knew that Maeve would play Dorian, and she did, but it turns out that Dorian was playing Maeve this entire time, and he had let her see what she wants to see, and let her see that he was jealous of Aelin, and that he has cracks in his power, and that he's not as strong as he actually is, but in reality he's been strong and he's been powerful this entire time, and he was playing her. So when she comes to take the keys, he like stops her and he gets into her brain. And when he gets into her brain, he's like, you thought I would be with you? This is not happening. You hurt my friend. I would never take your side. And she, please take me with you. Please take me with you. And he doesn't want to take her with him, even though he questions it for a moment, because he's like, me being under the ward stone collar is not what I would want for even my worst enemy, because he's a better person than me. Personally, I would let her rot. And I say this, but I know I probably wouldn't. But regardless, that doesn't matter. As she's talking to him, the area starts to like crack and fall apart, and he's like, what, you thought I would leave this room intact with all these weird like ward stone collars? That's not happening. So he barely gets out. She's like, please take me away, don't leave me here for Erewhon. He leaves her for Erewhon. And he flies away, and as he flies away, the whole entire thing collapses. And collapses with Maeve and Erewhon inside of it. Verdon is found, Elide's uncle, and as he's found, they like go and tell Elide, and Elide goes to see him right before he dies, because they're like, well, we're gonna question him, and then after we question him, we're gonna kill him. Do you want to come talk to him? And she's like, yeah, sure, all right. So she goes talk to him. There is no reason for her to talk to him because he's just a shitty person. And as she's talking to him, she's like, why did you do all of this stuff? Like, there was no necessary need for you to do any of this. And apparently the only reason that he'd done that is because he was jealous of her dad and what he had. That's the only reasoning he gives her. So as he is questioned, he tells them that Maeve is uniting with Erewhon, because Aelin didn't know that already. The only person that knows at this point is Dorian. He tells them, and they leave him chained, then leave him in the room to suffer, because she's like, you chained my friend for 10 years. I think you're gonna die of dehydration and hunger regardless, but I'm gonna leave you here chained for maybe 2 to 3 years is what you deserve. And she's true. She's so correct for that, because so valid. I would personally, if somebody did that to my loved ones, I'd do the same exact thing. So they leave him there, even though he's screaming. And that's the end of Vernon, I think, for now. For now. We never know with Sarah J. Maas. As they get ready for battle to fight against the Morath army, Aedion gets told that Evangeline can't sleep because she's scared. So he asks if he can go talk to her. Lysandra agrees, and they go to visit her, and as they're talking, he's like, Lysandra and Evangeline are like his family, basically. They're his found family. And I love them so much, and I love them. I love them. So he basically talks to her, and he's like, oh, when I had my first battle, I was very scared, but you're gonna be fine. It's not gonna be as bad as you think. And she finally like relaxes enough to be okay, and that's when he leaves her. The next day the war is happening, and as it's happening, Aedion basically begs Lysandra. He's like, please leave, like take Evangeline and leave through like the tunnelways. And she refuses, and she's like, well, why aren't you asking anybody else to leave? And he's like, because I'm not in love with anybody else. I'm in love with you. Yelling, screaming, like genuinely screaming. I screamed. And as he tells her that, she refuses to leave, and she like holds his hands and stays. She doesn't tell him that she loves him too, but they end up fighting. And as they're fighting, the Crocan legions show up with Manon, and they all like come down to help them. As they're fighting, the situation is really, really bad, and Evangeline is really stressed out, as she should be. She's a child. A Valk prince shows up, and he's fighting against Aedion, and Aedion fights him, but Ren helps Aedion kill him. And as he turns around to tell Ren, he's like, I had that, he gets hurt. He like gets injured to the point where he passes out. He's unconscious, and he gets taken to like the healers. As they're fighting, because this is not just where the shit ends. No. It's Sarah J. Maas. It would never end just there. As they're fighting, a yellow-legged witch, Iskra, comes down in her wyvern situation, and her creature ends up biting Abraxos to the point where he hurts him. And as this is happening, Manon is like screaming for Abraxos, and as she's going down to go help him, the matrons of the witches show up, and Petra Blueblood ends up killing Iskra. And she's like, this is for, because remember, Manon saved a Blue Bloods witch earlier in the books. So she tells her that this was for her and to go help Abraxos. And Manon goes to go get Astrin's wyvern to go up in the sky and fight again, because her grandmother shows up. And as she's about to go do that, Astrin is like, no, you're not allowed to do that. And she punches her in the stomach, and she's like, live, take our people home. And all of the 13 fly up, and they fight against her grandmother and her forces, and they all like burst into light, and her grandmother bursts with them, and so they're all dead. And she just stands there like staring up at them in disbelief, because what just happened? I would be in disbelief too. What do you mean you just burst into light? And she just sits there on the battlefield, like not doing anything for like the longest time with Abraxos, as if she's waiting for them. Why would you kill them like that? One by one, they just all like check, dead. Why? I'm not understanding. On the other end, you have Alide and Lorcan. They sleep together, which was a really cute scene, because he's like, we'll stop whenever you want me to stop. And she's like, show me everything. And so they end up sleeping together, and I love them together. Their relationship is like, she's like the innocent good girl, and he's like the shitty man, and I love it. I love that scene. Aelin and her crew is passing through Endovier. She's like, I don't want to burn it down. I don't want to fight anybody. I just want to pass through it peacefully. I don't want to fight. I don't want to talk to anybody about it. I don't even want to destroy it. There's no one there. And as they're passing through, somebody like flies over them in a wyvern, and it's Dorian. And when he gets down, he sees that Kill is walking, and he like starts crying, and Kill like runs up to him and hugs him, and it's like this cute ass scene where everybody's crying, and he introduces Yrene. Kill introduces Yrene to Dorian, and Yrene tells Dorian that he's gonna be an uncle. And then like it's the cutest thing like to read about, and they're getting together and they're like loving each other, only to turn around and realize that Dorian has the 3 fucking keys. And now somebody must sacrifice themselves. It's either going to be Dorian or it's either going to be Aelin. So they want to decide between if they should like hide the keys, because that's what Rowan says. Rowan is like, let's just fucking hide the keys and have somebody deal with it in like 1,000 years. And Aelin is like, we should do it now. We should just get it out the way now. Build the key, the gate, whatever. Lock it. Get rid of it. And that is when Aelin decides to like put in her new ways of governing, I guess. And she's like, let's just put it to a vote. And everybody votes to do it now, despite Rowan not wanting this to happen. Then he comes to her later and he's like, well, they said you should give all of you, but there's 2 of you. So what if each of you gives a half? Like, you give a half of your power, Dorian gives a half of his power. That way neither of you guys has to give up anything. Neither of you guys has to sacrifice and die for something that is not your fault. And they agree. Dorian agrees. And meanwhile, Aelin is like, I hate to ask this of you. I wish I didn't have to ask this of you, but I kind of have to. And he's like, it's on me too. Like, this is on me too. I have the blood too. So let me do this. And this is where shit hits the fan. This is where I really, really started bawling. I actually did cry, and this is why I stopped filming, because I actually was really hurting. They get there, so like they cut themselves, they put the keys between them, they like hold hands, and they pass through the portal, and through the portal they see none other than Dorian's dad. And Dorian's dad is like, you don't have to do this. Why are you here? You should not be here. Talking to Dorian, and Dorian is like, what do you mean? This is like my thing. I'm supposed to do this. And Dorian's dad is like, no, you don't do this. I'm the Nameless. I am the Nameless. Because this whole entire time they've been talking about the keys and stuff and saying you are nameless or something about being nameless. And it's true. They think about it. Nobody knows the old king's name because Erewhon had erased it from existence and from history. Even Dorian doesn't know his own father's name. He's like, let me help in this. And I didn't see this coming, which I should have because it's Sarah J. Maas. But they kick Dorian out of the circle and she holds hands with his dad and they both work on like the key and the lock. And Dorian like comes back. And this entire time that this is happening, Rowan can feel like his bond with Aelin like tensing and basically almost breaking. She ends up forging the locks and she forges the keys. And when the goddesses show up to tell her like, hey, send us out, we're done, she's like trying to like negotiate for Elena to stay, and they're like, oh, we were hoping you would say this. And one of them, I don't remember which goddess, but one of the goddesses comes to her and tells her, whenever you're done, like follow the keys or like follow the marks and you'll find your way back home. And it turns out Rowan, when he tattooed her, he tattooed word marks on her that would lead her back to him after she's done. He's a genius. The man's a genius. He said, I'm gonna do what I have to do and nobody will be as smart as me. And he's right, because I would have never even thought to do that. Like, genuinely, what? I'm mind blown when I read that. As she goes to do that, she like opens the portal for them, and as they all get angry at her, ask me why they get angry at her. It's because she sends them to a portal to a place that she's only ever been to once, when I believe she was with Nehemia and she summoned the wrong gate, and she sends them to basically a place like hell and like seals them in there. And when she's done, she comes back and she's into her body and she is no longer human. She's completely fae, and her power is no longer as strong as it used to be. So she's no longer the Firebringer. She just has like an ember of her power now. On top of all of this, Maeve and Erewhon are still there. Because when she tried to negotiate for Elena's life, she was like, you can leave Erewhon, but also leave Elena here. And they don't agree. And Erewhon is still there. And now they still have to fight him. So that's where I ended up. Everybody's pissed off at her because the situation was to get rid of Erewhon. And now Erewhon is still here. And Maeve is still here. And they still have to fight. They're not finished. Even though she done created the lock and the key and got rid of everybody else. So everybody's pissed. And everybody's blaming her for it. But she doesn't care. And now they're all heading to Orinth. That's where I'm at. I have 150 pages left. I'll probably finish this tomorrow. I read like 400 pages, 425 pages today. And I also read a whole complete manga. In total, I think today I read like 600 pages. If I was doing like a 24-hour readathon, I don't think I would have read this much. But regardless, I'm enjoying it, but I'm also really hurting. I cried like 3 times after I turned off the camera from my phone. That's why I turned it off, because I cried like 3 times. I'm really deep down in my depression era right now. Actually, I'm stopping myself right now from continuing to read because I don't want to finish it. I'm gonna go. You will see me tomorrow when it is our last day with this series. Happy Christmas Eve. And to all those who do celebrate, happy last day of me reading Throne of Glass series. It's my last day with this boy. This is how much I have left. Oh, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. It is 8:50 a.m. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna read until I finish this book. I am 850 pages in. So I've read, what was I was at 820. So I've read like 30 pages. Murtaugh dies. Ren, like, basically holding vigil for him, and Aedion stays there, and Lysandra puts Evangeline to bed, and then she comes back and she stands there with them until Aedion leaves. And then after Aedion leaves, she goes with him, and they tell each other that they love each other and that they're mates. They almost sleep together, but she's like, live tomorrow and we'll continue, and he's like, did you do this out of pity? And she's like, no, I did it because I'm tired of death and I love you. Lord of the North, which is a stag, comes over to Aelin and the rest of her team, and he's being like led, I guess, or he's like, he has little folk with him, and they're basically telling her to come with them as fast as possible because Terrasen is in trouble, which they are. They're very much in trouble. They're literally about to die. They think like the next day at the battle that's their last day. And so she gets on the stag, and the little folk lead them to the battlefield. And as this is happening, the day before the battle, Darrow is talking to Evangeline, and he's like, where would you have lived? And she's like, oh, I would have loved to live in Caver, or wherever Lysandra would have been the like lady of the land that Aelin gave her. And she like gives him this whole speech about how she would fight for it forever, and that it's her home. It's been her home since Aelin freed Lysandra from Clarice, I believe her name was. He like listens to her, and then he's like, come with me, and he goes to where Aedion and Lysandra are, and he gives back the sword of Orinth, I believe, to Aedion, and he's like, you've been a son to this land for ever, like, you deserve this. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I recognize your land, and I recognize that you're a lady, and whatever heirs you have will be like heirs to the land. And Lysandra's like, but Evangeline is my heir. And he's like, I know, I have never had a child, and I would love to die on the battlefield knowing that I have an heir and somebody who can follow my legacy and be like the lady to my land. So can I have Evangeline to be like my heir? Can I adopt her? And they agree. They give Evangeline the choice, and she agrees. She says, yeah. So now he's technically her adoptive father, and whoever Lysandra and Aedion have, they would be their heirs for their land. When I tell y'all that I'm about to vomit, I mean it. They're literally like doing so well, and they're like winning the fight, and then you just see the Iron Team and a bunch of Valk princes like come in, a second wave of them, a stronger wave of them. This entire time, the first like Legion fleet, whatever, was just a distraction, and now there's a shit ton more. Gabriel shows up, and he goes to Aedion, and he's like, we need to like seal them out. We need to seal them out from the gate. And he tells him like, can we do it together? And Aedion like gives in, and he's like, yeah, we'll do it together. And he means it about literally everything else. He's like, my dad came. He, as they're trying to seal them out with like pushing them out of the gates, Gabriel jumps out with them to like kill them while Aedion seals the gate, and then he gets the gate sealed on him, like purposefully. That was his plan this entire time. He's realized that this is the one thing he can do for his son, and he dies. He gets his throat clawed out, and he dies. Gabriel dies, and Aedion like bawls his eyes out, and he looks at him, and he's like, he didn't have to do that. And Rowan like goes to him, and he's like, I hope you find her in the afterlife, friend. I hope you find like peace. I really cannot do this anymore. May even Erewhon show up, and they have like this whole entire thing of Valk princes with them, and there's supposed to be a plan that Rowan and Aelin are supposed to do, and everybody knows it, but we don't know it yet. Not that I know of, not that I've read about. Rowan can't fight with her because he has to protect the people, because he can hear the people screams, and he's like, she would never forgive me if I leave the people of Terrasen to suffer like this, because that was their only like their only command from her as like a blood oath thing is that they protect the people of Tirison. And so she stands up against Erewhon and Maeve alone. She doesn't have her power, so she's basically just talking this entire time, trying to like extend her, basically trying to stall. I mean, I don't want to read this anymore. I have cried 3 times. I'm not doing well. Lyde realizes that there's one way that they can get rid of Erewhon. So her, Lysandra, and Yrene end up like going to Dorian to tell him that they need him. And Kayla's like, you're not doing this. You're pregnant. You're gonna get yourself killed. She's like, it's happening, bae. I don't know what to tell you. They go and they meet with Erewhon, and he thinks he's talking to Yrene, but in actuality it's not actually Yrene, it's Dorian shifted as Yrene. He is like, I'm not Yrene. And Lysandra, who had shapeshifted as one of the rooks, like the little flying things, comes down with actually Yrene in her like claws. He's like, you are the unhealer. This is why we got rid of you. We used healers to like unbind the gate, and we like, you guys are killers too, not just healers. But she's like, you're pathetic. And she like bursts into starlight and like kills him. She gets rid of him. She turns him into ash. And then on the other hand, you have Aelin speaking to Maeve, and she gives her these visions that are like that she's still in the box, in the iron box, and that she's still kidnapped, and that she's like no one is there to save her, and this all has been a dream, like her getting out and whatever. Apparently when she had banished the gods, she imbued her power into the sword, into Goldrin. When Rowan, Lorcan, and Fenris come to her, they all have like a little thing of iron in their shoulder or whatever, and they come to help her, but Maeve is like, you think you can beat me, really? Like, you, come on now. I am a god. And so she gives everybody, each one of them, visions where Rowan is talking to Lyria and she's telling him, you failed me, you're a failed male. And Lorcan is talking to Elide and he's like, I think you might be my mate. And she's like, I would never love you. And Fenris just watches his brother die over and over and over again. And Maeve is like, you can save them if you take the blood oath from me. And instead of doing that, she uses her powers to like hit them on where their like shoulders are injured, and they form like a word mark. She joins hands with Rowan, so their power grows. And as they're doing that, Aelin talks to Maeve and she's like, you want to stay here, right? Because you love this place. You came here because you didn't love the place you came from. Maeve is like, yeah. And then during all of this is happening, Maeve is like, oh, I guess you guys are gonna punish me now because I did Rowan and Aelin like wrong the most. And Rowan and Aelin are like, actually you didn't, because the person you did wrong the most is Fenris. And Fenris ends up stabbing her in the back with the Goldrin, and obviously it has fire in it, and she's a Valg, so she turns into her true form. She's like, I will go anywhere you want me to, just like, you can banish me wherever you want, just take it out of me. The place you lived at before you hated, and you hated your life and you hated your husband, true or not? And she's like, yeah. And so Aelin like gets closer to her and she's like, then go to hell. And they send her there. And she's gone. Now Erewhon and Maeve are both gone. They're in Orin. And yeah, and Yrene wakes up because she's okay. She's not dead. Kale wakes up and he's not dead. I have 50 pages left. Oh, I forgot to say. Dorian, before he gets rid of Erewhon, he asks him what his father's name is. And he keeps like refusing to tell him. And so Dorian is like, tell me my father's name. Tell me my father's name. And he tells him that his father's name was his own. It was Dorian. And the only time he remembered his name is when he held Dorian for the first time after he was born. I'm telling you, bro, if you have daddy issues, this book is not for the weak. Darrow just accepted her as queen. He accepted Aelin. Mind you, in the beginning, he was very much against her being queen, and now he just tells her, welcome home, your majesty. Darrow! She goes to see Aedion, and when she does, she asks him where Gabrielle is, and when they go down to see him, she offers him the blood oath, and she's like, let the world know that you are a male of honor, and that you are sworn to me. You have taken the blood oath. Lorcan tells Elide to ask him to marry him and to stay and to go to Paranth with her, and she does. And he's like, I'll become Lorcan Loken. And he's like, I'll use it with pride. I will marry you and proudly call myself Lorkin Loken. When we are wed, I will bind my life to yours, so we will never know a day apart. He's building her a library and a theater because now that Maeve is dead, Rowan is the prince of Dornell. So he's like, I'm gonna use my money, consider it a maiden gift, a new library and a royal theater. Aelin is building a monument for the Iron Team, or for the 13 that died for Manon. Stop. I love Manon and Aelin together. I love it. She just got crowned, and like they had the ceremony, and now she's giving Aedion the blood oath. Oh no. Yrene heard Dorian and Manon talking because he asked her to come back and help train the Rooks, I guess, because Tartak had asked him to train some of them, and Dorian asks Manon, and Yrene hears them, and she's like, because Manon wants to go to the wastes and then like rebuild it, and he's like, well, why don't you come over here and help me and then go back there? And Yrene is like, well, why don't you just marry? Oh, Eline and Lorcan got married. Stop. Aedion and Lysandra are getting married. Shut up. I'm reading the acknowledgements. Leave me alone. I'm gonna cry. I need a moment.
It's been a week. It's been a week, I think, since I finished Kingdom of Ash. Today is the 30th. As you saw, I clearly got emotional reading it and finishing it and reading like the last few pages of it. I spent an entire month, almost an entire month, with that series, and trust me when I say, in the beginning, when I started this series, I was not sure if I would continue after Heir of Fire. I will say this full and clear. I was not sure if I was going to continue, if I would like it enough to continue, if I would be interested in the story after years of not being in a fantasy world that big. A book series that's purely fantasy is obviously hard to get into, and when the last book is like 980 pages and you have to do a tandem read, is a little bit of a daunting task. And it is, don't get me wrong, it definitely is. I felt very, very scared because this is a beloved series, and I was so scared that I wouldn't like it, and then I would end up having this video talking about, oh, like I don't understand the hype, because there are some booktubers that I watch that don't enjoy that series. And then when I picked it up again this year, it wasn't in my mind at all that I would pick it up in the beginning of the year. No way, not even at all was I like, oh, I'm gonna reread the Throne of Glass series, because I have had completely shut it down out of my mind. I wasn't even interested. If I don't like it, then I can be, you know, then have people to talk to about how much I don't like it and why I think it's overrated. That clearly didn't happen, as you guys saw by my reactions. I knew I was in trouble with this series when I got to Heir of Fire, and I was really, really enjoying myself. Because don't get me wrong, I loved reading Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight the first time around. They were my first, like my favorite books in the series. I loved Crown of Midnight. I was Crown of Midnight ride or die. I got to Heir of Fire and I obviously didn't like it. This time around, adored Heir of Fire. I adored Queen of Shadows. I adored Empire of Storms. I adored Kingdom of Ash. Tower of Dawn remains a little for me because, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Kale. I do understand him a little bit now. That does not mean I don't, you know, like I love him or what. I don't love him. I'm okay with him. I'm okay with his existence. I don't hate him. I have rambled enough. I feel like at this point, I have said all I needed to say. I adored the series so much. Every single book is 5 stars for me, except for the novellas, the Assassin's Blade and Tower of Dawn. I gave Tower of Dawn 4 stars, and I believe I gave Assassin's Blade 3.75. I will say, I have started editing this video. I was talking about how I'm not a novella girly. I'm still not a novella girly. You will not catch me voluntarily reading novellas for fun. I understand why people say you should read the novellas in this case and read the Assassin's Blade somewhere along your reading journey, because it makes so much sense. It makes the story make sense. It makes you understand Selena better, Aelin, I guess. It makes you understand why she does what she does. I definitely do think that it's worth it. I definitely recommend reading it. The famous line of, is it ever that serious about Kingdom of Ash? It is. It is. To the girl who started this series being like, oh my god, 980 pages, I don't think I could do it. You could, and you did a tandem read, all of it within less than a month. It's not that much once you're really in the story and you really care about the characters. The 980 pages went by in a blink of an eye. The days after I finished the series, I was so upset that I didn't have anything to go back to. I did not want to read anything else. I loved the series. I'm one of many. I understand why it's so beloved and why everybody swears by it. I definitely think you should read it. Everything that Sarah J. Maas writes, she writes it with a purpose and she writes it with an end game in sight, I feel like. Sarah J. Maas is a genius. I will stand by that forever, for the rest of my life. I do have a ranking. I'm not sure about it right now, but I will put it up here. It's my thoughts and opinions on the Throne of Glass series. The most unhinged I've been in a while over a series. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around. I love you, and I hope you have a good day. And if you haven't read the Throne of Glass series, I don't know what you're doing. Get into it.